We're talking about 17 kids in one classroom. I want to know what happened in that classroom.
Most people think Weapons is just another horror movie about missing children and a creepy witch. But what if I told you that every single detail in this film, from the exact time the kids disappear at 2:17 a.m. to the ancient bell that controls them, is based on real occult practices that have been used for centuries to manipulate human consciousness? Director Zach Cregger didn't just make a scary movie, he encoded genuine witchcraft techniques, ancient possession rituals, and real government conspiracy connections that most viewers completely missed. Did you notice that 17 children disappear at exactly 2:17 a.m.? That's not random movie timing. That's connecting to real death magic practices and a government cover-up that most people have never heard of.
At 2:17 in the morning, every other kid woke up, got out of bed, walked downstairs, opened the front door, walked across the front yard and into the dark, and they never came back.
Secret number 1, the 217 death magic code. That specific time when the children disappear, 2:17 a.m., isn't just atmospheric horror timing. It's connecting to multiple layers of real death magic, grief processing, government conspiracies, and occult traditions that will blow your mind. First, director Zach Cregger lost his close friend and comedy partner Trevor Moore in 2021. Moore died on August 7th around 2:30 a.m. after falling from his balcony while intoxicated. If you take the year 2021 and the date August 7th, you get 21-7, which becomes 217. The entire movie is Cregger processing his grief through occult symbolism, but it goes deeper. In Stephen King's original novel, The Shining, the haunted hotel room is 217, not 237 like in Kubrick's film. Cregger has confirmed this connection, and both stories involve children being psychically controlled by malevolent forces. Here's where it gets really dark. 217 also connects to the Parkland school shooting, which killed exactly 17 people in February, the second month, giving us 2 and 17. The original script included Valentine's Day cards that the children had to exchange, and Parkland happened on Valentine's Day. The AR-15 floating above the house in Archer's dream isn't random imagery. It's connecting the supernatural horror to real-world violence. But the most incredible connection is to U.S. Congress Bill 217, which attempted to ban assault weapons with a vote of 217 to 213, too close to pass. The movie suggests that when society fails to address real violence, supernatural forces fill the void. In numerology and death magic traditions, 217 represents the moment when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Around 2 a.m. is when most deaths occur naturally, and the 17th day of any month is considered powerful for necromantic work. The children don't just disappear at 217, they're being harvested at the exact moment when death magic is most potent. And the entity doing the harvesting is far older and more dangerous than most viewers realize.
Matthew, where are you? Where did you go?
Talk to me!
I'm sorry that I wasn't able to...
Secret number 2. Gladys, the 400-year-old Salem witch. When Gladys mentions having a touch of consumption, most people think it's just old-fashioned language. But if you know anything about historical witchcraft, you'll recognize that she's revealing her true age, and it's terrifying. Consumption was the term for tuberculosis that was commonly used in the 1600s during the exact period of the Salem witch trials. Gladys isn't just an old woman, she's a centuries-old entity who has been practicing witchcraft since the colonial period. But here's what's really incredible. Her behavior perfectly matches historical accounts of accused witches from Salem. She appears as a helpful relative, gains access to homes through social manipulation, and then begins systematically draining the life force of entire families. This is exactly what the Salem accusers claimed real witches were doing. The fact that Alex's parents can't quite remember their relationship to her, and that her story keeps changing, sometimes she's an aunt, sometimes a great-aunt, suggests she's using memory manipulation techniques that appear in actual witch trial testimonies. The most disturbing detail is her knowledge of modern systems. She understands how to manipulate school protocols, social services, and family dynamics in ways that suggest she's been adapting her methods for centuries. She's not just an ancient witch, she's an ancient witch who has learned to operate in the modern world. And the tools she uses to control her victims contain symbols that will shock anyone who understands ceremonial magic.
Ah! I think she cut my hair!
Secret number 3, the demonic summoning bell. That bell Gladys uses isn't just a creepy prop, It contains authentic demonic summoning symbols that have been used in ceremonial magic for over 1,000 years. The triangle on the bell represents the triple goddess in witchcraft, the maiden, mother, and crone aspects of feminine divine power. But when inverted as it appears on Gladys's bell, it becomes a symbol of corrupted feminine energy, representing the dark mother who devours her children instead of nurturing them. The number 6 next to the triangle creates 666 when you understand that the triangle itself represents 3, the Trinity, making it 666. This isn't accidental, it's marking the bell as a tool of demonic invocation. But here's what most people miss. The bell's sound frequency is specifically tuned to induce altered states of consciousness. In Tibetan Buddhism, bells are used to guide souls through the bardo, the space between death and rebirth. Gladys is using the same spiritual technology, but corrupted for control rather than liberation. The ritual she performs, ringing the bell while holding personal items mixed with blood, follows the exact formula used in Haitian Vodou for creating zombies. The bell activates the spell, the personal items create the psychic connection, and the blood provides the life force energy needed to maintain control. Watch carefully when she rings the bell. The children don't just obey, they enter a trance state that matches documented cases of ritual possession. Their consciousness is being overridden by an external force that's using the bell as a transmission device. The most incredible detail is that bells have been used in exorcism and demon summoning for centuries because they create standing wave patterns that can affect human brainwaves. Gladys isn't just using superstition, she's using acoustic technology that actually works on the nervous system. And the way the children move under her control reveals even deeper connections to ancient fertility cults. Secret number 4. Ancient fertility cult possession. Those scenes of the children running with their arms outstretched in perfect synchronization aren't just creepy imagery. They're recreating authentic possession techniques used by ancient fertility cults to create collective consciousness. Director Zach Cregger has confirmed that this pose was inspired by the famous Napalm Girl photograph from Vietnam, but there's a deeper occult connection. The outstretched arms create a specific body position that appears in fertility cult rituals from around the world. In ancient Dionysian mysteries, participants would run through forests with arms spread wide to invoke the god of ecstasy and collective madness. The pose opens the heart chakra and creates energetic vulnerability that allows external entities to take control of the body. But here's what's really incredible. The children move as a perfect hive mind, which matches historical accounts of mass possession events. In medieval Europe, entire convents would sometimes fall under collective possession, with dozens of nuns moving and speaking in perfect unison. The running motion itself serves a specific purpose in possession rituals. The repetitive movement and synchronized breathing creates what shamans call driving, a technique for inducing altered states of consciousness that make possession easier. Notice how the children's faces remain blank and expressionless while running. This indicates that their individual consciousness has been suppressed while their bodies are being operated by an external intelligence. This is exactly what ancient fertility cults were trying to achieve. The most disturbing detail is that fertility cults used these techniques specifically on children because young minds are more malleable and less able to resist psychic intrusion. Gladys isn't just randomly targeting kids. She's using them because they're the most vulnerable to her methods. And what she's doing to them connects to a form of spiritual vampirism that destroys families from within. Secret number 5. Addiction as spiritual vampirism. Those scenes where Alex has to feed his zombie-like parents soup aren't just disturbing imagery. They're depicting authentic spiritual vampirism that mirrors how addiction actually operates in families. Cregger has revealed that this storyline is autobiographical, based on his experience growing up with an alcoholic father. But what he's showing goes beyond just family dysfunction. It's demonstrating how addiction functions as a form of spiritual possession that turns parents into energy vampires. In occult tradition, addiction is understood as a form of entity attachment, where the addicted person becomes a host for parasitic spiritual forces that feed on life energy. The person appears to be present, but their true self has been displaced by something else that only cares about feeding its appetites. Watch Alex's parents throughout the movie. They're physically present but spiritually absent, just like how addiction works in real life. They can perform basic functions, but they've lost their essential humanity, their ability to truly care for their child. The soup feeding represents how children in addicted families often become the caretakers, providing emotional and physical nourishment to parents who should be nurturing them. But it's more than role reversal. It's showing how the child's life force is being systematically drained to sustain the parasitic entity controlling the parents. Gladys represents the addiction itself, the foreign substance or behavior that enters the family system and transforms loving parents into something predatory and dangerous. She literally feeds on their life force to maintain her own existence, just like how addiction consumes everything healthy in a family to sustain itself. The most incredible detail is that Alex's parents improve slightly when Gladys gets stronger, suggesting that the parasitic entity is redistributing stolen life force to keep its hosts functional enough to continue serving its needs. And the tool she uses to maintain this vampiric control contains technology that medieval witches actually used. Secret number 6. Medieval witchcraft technology. That twisted black tree that Gladys brings with her isn't just a creepy prop. It's based on authentic medieval witchcraft technology that was actually used for centuries to focus and amplify magical power. The tree appears to be a blackthorn, which was considered one of the most powerful plants in European witchcraft traditions. Blackthorn wood was used to make wands, staffs, and ritual tools, because it was believed to naturally conduct spiritual energy and provide protection against hostile forces. But Gladys has corrupted the blackthorn's natural properties. Instead of using it for protection, she's turned it into a parasitic focus that allows her to drain life force from multiple victims simultaneously. The twisted, unnatural growth pattern shows that the tree itself has been infected by her vampiric energy. In medieval grimoires, trees like this were called witch trees, living magical tools that could store and transmit spiritual power across great distances. By keeping personal items from her victims wrapped around the branches, Gladys maintains a constant psychic connection to everyone she's controlling. The most incredible detail is how she tends the tree throughout the movie, watering it and adjusting the items tied to its branches. This matches historical accounts of witches who maintained poppet trees, living repositories for sympathetic magic that could affect people miles away. The branches she breaks off to perform individual spells are like circuit boards in a supernatural computer system. Each piece contains the accumulated power of all her victims, which is why her magic becomes more effective as the movie progresses, and the way she combines these branches with other materials follows a specific formula that appears in authentic voodoo traditions. Secret number 7. Authentic voodoo blood magic. When Gladys performs her control rituals, mixing personal items with blood, hair, and water while ringing the bell, she's following an authentic voodoo formula that has been used for centuries to create what practitioners call spiritual slavery. In traditional voodoo, the combination of personal items, representing the target's identity, blood, providing life force energy, hair, containing DNA and psychic imprint, and water, serving as a conductor, creates what's called a spiritual battery that can power remote control over another person. The specific order of her ritual matches documented voodoo practices. First, she cuts her palm to provide blood, then she wraps the personal items with hair from her target, adds them to the water, and finally rings the bell to activate the spell. This isn't random movie magic, it's following a real magical formula. But here's what makes it even more authentic. She performs the ritual at about 2 a.m, which corresponds to what voodoo practitioners call the hour of the crossroads, when the barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds is thinnest. This timing isn't coincidental, it's when this type of magic is most effective. The water she uses isn't just tap water, it's collected in a specific bowl that she's consecrated for magical use. In voodoo tradition, the ritual vessel becomes charged with spiritual energy over time and amplifies the power of any magic performed with it. The most disturbing aspect is that once someone is under this type of control, breaking free requires either the death of the practitioner or the complete destruction of all the ritual materials. This is why the children remain psychologically damaged even after Gladys is killed. The spiritual connections she created have left permanent marks on their souls, and the personal items she originally planned to use reveal connections to even older love magic traditions. Secret number 8. Ancient love magic traditions. The original script revealed that Gladys planned to use Valentine's Day cards that the children exchanged with each other, connecting her magic to ancient love spell traditions that are far more sinister than most people realize. In medieval and Renaissance magic, love spells were considered some of the most dangerous forms of witchcraft because they involved the complete override of another person's free will. The use of items exchanged between people, letters, gifts, tokens of affection, was believed to create the strongest possible psychic connections. Valentine's Day itself has roots in ancient Roman fertility festivals, where young people would draw names and be paired together for ritual purposes. By using Valentine's cards, Gladys would have been tapping into centuries of accumulated magical energy associated with romantic bonding and emotional manipulation. But here's what's really sinister. Children's Valentine's cards are particularly powerful for this type of magic because they represent innocent affection without sexual complications. The pure emotional energy makes them ideal conductors for control spells that bypass the target's psychological defenses. The fact that the children had to give cards to everyone in the class creates a web of psychic connections that Gladys could have exploited. Instead of controlling them individually, she could have used the network of relationships to create a collective possession where each child's control reinforces the others. Even though this element was removed from the final film and replaced with simple name tags, the underlying magical principle remains the same. Personal items that represent identity and social connections provide the strongest foundation for remote control magic. The most incredible detail is that love magic traditions specifically warn against using these techniques on children, because young minds can't recover from having their emotional development hijacked by external forces. Gladys isn't just stealing their bodies, she's corrupting their ability to form healthy relationships for the rest of their lives. And when the children finally turn against her, they perform a ritual that appears in cultures around the world. Secret number 9, ritualistic parasitic devouring. That climactic scene where the children swarm Gladys and tear her apart with their bare hands isn't just horror movie violence. It's depicting an authentic ritual practice that appears in shamanic traditions worldwide for destroying parasitic spiritual entities. In many indigenous cultures, when a community is infected by what shamans call a spiritual parasite, an entity that feeds on human life force, the traditional remedy is collective ritual devouring. The entire community must participate in literally consuming the parasite to prevent it from regenerating or transferring to a new host. Watch how the children move during this scene. They don't attack randomly or in anger. They move with coordinated precision, each child taking a specific part of Gladys's body. This matches documented accounts of ritual dismemberment practices where every piece of the parasitic entity must be consumed to ensure complete destruction. The most incredible detail is that the children use only their hands and teeth, no weapons or tools. In shamanic tradition, parasitic entities can only be truly destroyed by direct physical contact that allows the community's collective life force to overwhelm and absorb the parasite's energy. But here's what's really profound. This isn't just revenge, it's spiritual reclamation. By devouring Gladys, the children are taking back the life force she stole from them and their families. They're not just killing her, they're reversing the vampiric process and redistributing the stolen energy. The scene also mirrors the ancient Greek myth of Dionysus being torn apart by the Titans and then reconstituted. In mystery school tradition, this represents the necessary destruction of the false self so that the true self can emerge. The children are symbolically destroying the parasitic influence that has been controlling them. Notice how Gladys doesn't fight back during this scene. She seems almost relieved. This suggests that on some level, even parasitic entities understand that their existence is unnatural, and that being destroyed by their victims is a form of cosmic justice. The most disturbing aspect is that this ritual devouring is the only way to break the type of spiritual slavery that Gladys has created. Conventional methods, exorcism, banishment, protective magic, won't work against an entity that has formed such deep psychic connections with its victims. But even after this ritual destruction, the true cost of spiritual possession becomes horrifyingly clear. Secret number 10, the true cost of soul possession. The movie's ending, where the children are returned to their families but remain psychologically vacant, reveals the most terrifying truth about spiritual possession. Even when the entity is destroyed, the damage to the soul can be permanent. In authentic exorcism and shamanic healing traditions, there's a concept called soul fragmentation. When a person's consciousness is invaded by external forces, pieces of their essential self can be permanently severed or damaged. The children's blank expressions and inability to fully engage with reality shows that parts of their souls have been consumed. Maddie's narration mentions that some of them even started talking again this year, which indicates that the recovery process takes years and may never be complete. This matches real-world accounts of people who have experienced severe psychological trauma or what some practitioners believe to be genuine possession. But here's what's most disturbing. The children who were under Gladys's control the longest show the most severe damage. Alex, who lived with her for months, appears almost catatonic at the end. His parents, who were possessed even longer, require institutional care and may never recover their full humanity. This reflects authentic spiritual teaching about the cumulative damage of parasitic relationships. The longer someone remains under the influence of an entity that feeds on life force, the more of their essential self is consumed and can never be recovered. The most incredible detail is that the movie suggests this type of spiritual vampirism is happening all around us, disguised as addiction, toxic relationships, and systems that drain human energy for the benefit of parasitic forces. Gladys represents just one example of entities that feed on human consciousness. The final shot of Archer carrying his son, both of them looking vacant and disconnected, shows that even the survivors have been fundamentally changed by their encounter with parasitic consciousness. They're alive, but they're not fully human anymore. And this connects to a larger truth about how spiritual predators operate in our world. They don't just want to kill their victims, they want to hollow them out and use them as vessels for spreading their influence to others. Now I know what you're thinking. This is just a horror movie, not some documentary about real spiritual warfare. But here's the thing. The most dangerous spiritual truths have always been hidden in entertainment. What better way to prepare people for real encounters with parasitic entities than to show them exactly how these forces operate? What makes Weapons so incredible is that it's not just using occult symbolism for atmosphere, it's actually demonstrating how spiritual vampirism works in our modern world. The addiction metaphors, the family dysfunction, the way institutions fail to protect children, all of this reflects real patterns of how parasitic forces operate in society. Think about it. We live in a world where children are increasingly disconnected from their families, where addiction rates are skyrocketing, where people seem more vacant and spiritually empty than ever before. What if these aren't just social problems, but symptoms of widespread spiritual predation? I have to admit, researching this movie completely changed how I look at the people and systems around me. We're so conditioned to think of vampirism as a fantasy concept that we miss the fact that spiritual vampirism is happening everywhere, in toxic relationships, addictive substances, and institutions that drain human energy for their own benefit. The movie shows us that the real weapons aren't guns or knives. They're the things we use to numb our pain, the relationships that drain our life force, and the systems that convince us to give up our spiritual autonomy in exchange for false security. But it also shows us that communities have the power to fight back when they recognize what's happening and work together to destroy the parasitic forces that are feeding on them. The children's final victory over Gladys proves that collective action can overcome even the most powerful spiritual predators. The question is, do we have the courage to recognize the Gladys figures in our own lives and communities? And are we willing to do what's necessary to break free from their influence? But I want to know what you think. Did you catch any of these occult symbols when you first watched the movie? Have you encountered people or situations in your own life that seemed to drain your energy in ways that felt almost supernatural? Drop a comment below and let me know which of these secrets shocked you the most. And if you've had any experiences with the practices I mentioned, energy vampirism, spiritual possession, or community healing rituals, I'd love to hear how this analysis connects to your own journey. Also, if you want to dive deeper into any of these topics I mentioned, spiritual vampirism, protection techniques, community healing practices, or recognizing parasitic entities, please subscribe to the channel. I have a new video dropping every week. But before you go, let me leave you with one final thought that will change everything. The title Weapons doesn't just refer to the children being used as weapons. It refers to everything in our lives that can be weaponized against us by parasitic forces. Our relationships, our addictions, our traumas, our institutions. All of these can become weapons in the hands of entities that want to harvest our life force and consciousness. But they can also become weapons in our own hands when we learn to recognize what's happening and fight back. Because in the end, we're all like those children in the movie, vulnerable to forces we don't understand, controlled by entities we can't see, and damaged in ways we're only beginning to recognize. The only question is, will you remain a weapon in someone else's hands, or will you learn to wield the weapons of spiritual discernment and community action to protect yourself and the people you love? The choice is yours. Thanks for watching.